Get excited because we've got some real big news stories for May 7th, 2018 on this week's Roll for Crit News Roundup.
We all hope you had a happy May 4th, and Fantasy Flight has decided to have a great one too by announcing a new edition for the XWing miniatures game, XWing 2nd Edition. This will actually be a new core set as well as new expansions, in addition to a conversion kit for all the old materials. The idea behind this is it's going to try to streamline it a little bit, as well as add force as a more important option in the game, which may make it easier to fly around or hit targets. In addition, they'll try to make factions feel more different, such as Scum and Villainy, really feeling different from the Rebel and the Imperial fighters. Also, the Resistance and First Order should also feel different as their own different factions, separating them as not just an add-on for the teams from the original 4, 5, and 6 movies. This is new packaging. It's more black, sleek, and if you actually look at some of the examples, they've released the core set, which actually is the basic X-Wing and TIE Fighter from the original core set, not the new Force Awakens versions. But the naming is a lot more specific, is what I noticed, because I remember the old package was just Y-Wing.
Right.
But this has like the YT. I do not know these as well, but
the official designations of that Y-Wing, yeah.
Exactly, which I think allows. I'm wondering if part of it is, I know for the TIE Fighter was obviously for the /N is to help you differentiate between the regular versus the future one, because it's just color palette otherwise. But I wonder if they're also going to do this to maybe, even in the story, especially since we're doing side stories like Solo, that's coming out soon. So there would be like, that's a Y-Wing, but that one's modified maybe for land runs or something.
I guess it's a little more future-proof, so like if they can make sure if they want to make another 4 Y-Wings that you know exactly which kinds you're getting, right. I suppose. Another thing that you didn't talk about was the new app they're coming out with in addition, the Squad Builder app, which lets you, helps you build your squads, but also you can like they might change the point values of different ships for a special tournament or something, which is really interesting because they could maybe even use that for balancing stuff down the line or patches in a way,
well,
so to
another
speak.
Great thing about the app is anything that, when it comes to tournament play, like when I did Magic the Gathering, one of the things that was really useful for me was the unofficial versions, but there's a lot of like deck editors where you can sort of make a deck, see how it would draw before you actually build it, which makes things a lot easier. So if you have a collection, being able to put in like, I have these ships and be able to mess around like, all right, I have 12 points left. If I move this X-Wing in, oh, that's too much. I mean, like something that could be very helpful for you for really trying to squeeze the most efficiency out of your team and with the points without accidentally screwing up and realizing you're like, oh wait, I was 10 points over.
Yeah, which is great for a game like this where that's, the tournament heavy players. They're doing that a lot.
Yeah.
It's really helpful. And the Fantasy Flight, they seem to love their apps these days.
Yes.
I mean, it's really, thank God that it's all backwards compatible too. I mean, they had to do that because people would have killed them.
Well, there are actually still people who are a little angry about that I've read. I mean, it's a 2nd edition, I'm not surprised. A lot of people are like, this is really expensive, even if you just need to, like, you don't need to buy the new stuff. Because remember when they did the X-Wing core set, the future version, the Force Awakens, thank you. They had a new damage deck, and you actually needed that because they were saying the old one was out. So for a lot of people, they feel like they're being forced to go through that again.
I mean, I know people will get mad at me for saying this, but it's like if you're that heavy into X-Wing that affects you, you've already probably spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on this game. Like, it's sort of inevitable. Like, I feel like all these games, unless you're something like Magic, which it's refreshing itself every year already, for these like sort of LCG style games, I know this is not a card game, but you know what I mean, where they're just expandable like that. And at a certain point, you gotta make a new edition because things just change.
Well, I think the big problem for Fantasy Flight has to face with this one is when I think of a card game, and they finally did with Netrunner, and in fact, Netrunner was having a lot of tournament issues, and I think they had this, you could cycle out cards. How do you say that to people like, all right, X-Wings are now out? I think it's sort of a big deal if you say X-Wings are no longer allowed in play in a Star Wars game.
Yeah, plus it's one card versus a mini that maybe you painted and spent all this time on. My favorite thing though about this, the new versions of ships they're gonna have, is they said some of the ships will be more kind of movable, like posable, like the X-Wings will actually be able to open and close their wings.
Oh, that's pretty cool, because I will say that mini-wise, these look really awesome. I feel like they're definitely, even if you're not big into the game, this might be I've always wanted to just get a Y-Wing because that's one of my favorite little ships.
I mean, personally, I like X-Wing. I think it's a really fun game, but there's definitely room for streamlining and refining of those rules. So I'm super excited. I'm happy. I think it's cool that they're doing a second edition.
We're definitely going to see how this pans out in the tournament scene later on once it's more in everyone's hands.
Yeah, and I think Gen Con is when they're first unveiling it. And open and wide release to the public in September.
So you should probably get in line for the Fantasy Fight booth now.
A new edition of the very popular tabletop game Scythe is coming out, but maybe it's not what you would quite expect. It's a family version of the game called My Little Scythe, designed for younger people, also known as children, to play with their families, based on the same core gameplay designs of the original Scythe, but much more cartoonish in nature. Instead of battles and such, instead you're trying to gain friendship and perhaps pies. And it's a more simplified version of that player board rather than all those different things you can do. There's sort of 3 main types of actions you can take on your turn. It still keeps that core gameplay and the different victory point and win conditions available. You're trying to get 4 trophies of different available trophies that for different objectives of the game. And this was actually based on a fan-made print and play mod of the original Scythe, which was based on My Little Pony. And it sounds like they actually, Stonemaier Games, the publisher of Scythe, actually did try to get that published as an official game, but Hasbro, who holds the license for My Little Pony, was not interested in making that deal for whatever reason, so they just went ahead and changed the theme a little bit and made it an original IP. But they are still going to be producing this one, and it's going to be coming out at Gen Con and for wide release August 17th. I think we gave Scythe our #1 game the year it came out.
Yeah, I love it. I'm definitely curious. In fact, I also know, sort of related, that this sort of has happened before with My Little Pony. Apparently someone tried to make a fighting game, like it was free, like just fan-made, and Hasbro shut them down. So they made their own and actually got, like, the original cartoonists gave them characters to use.
So, what is it about My Little Pony?
They really, like, this is for girls. We cannot let this be for other people.
I mean, it's a pretty cool idea too, because you see plenty of games for kids, and you see but it's rare that you see a hardcore game.
We don't see Twilight Imperium for kids,
which is kind of what this is. Like, Scythe is kind of that level of game.
I'm hoping it is actually, like, this is play tested and does well with kids, because the idea of, as a parent, being able to be, okay, I could get you Monopoly or this game Scythe, so you can actually play the kid version, and then when you get maybe a little older, I can play the adult version with you, and you already have 6 of the mechanics under control, which is...
Yeah, it's interesting because, even looking at this new version, it still looks like you gotta be like at least 12 to understand it. Like, it doesn't seem like they dumbed it down that much, which is to their credit. And you can actually read the rule book right now and go online and check it out. I think it might even be up for pre-order now or soon. The other mind blower for me about this, the trailer they released for the game, the video, they pronounce it Scythe? Right. Is that how you say Scythe? Have I been saying it wrong my whole life? Like, everyone I've ever talked to says Scythe.
Maybe only that version has that?
I think maybe, is it possible we've all just been corrupted by the Pokemon Scyther? And that made us think?
What if we've done like the Bernstein Bear reality shift?
It's the Mandela effect? Yeah, that could be. Anyway, My Little Scythe could be the perfect thing if you have young gamers in your life. Releasing in August.
Pandasaurus is coming out with a new game with a unique twist called Nyctophobia. It is a game where you actually will all play blindfolded, except for one other player who sort of played the antagonist of the game. This game was invented by Catherine Stipple, who invented it from playing with her blind uncle. The idea is trying to make a game where you actually can feel without seeing and play the game. So the way the game works is most of them take place in a forest, and you're like either trying to escape the base game will come either with a mad murdering axeman or a wizard, and the axeman just cut down trees and stop you from getting out, and you'll have to sort of feel your way, while the wizard, sounds like the wizard sort of messes around with the board and tries to trick you that way. In addition, the one thing I do like about this will have a Target exclusive version, but unlike the few I've bought, which just feel like a light version of the same components, so it's almost like worthless or maybe a weird promo, it does come with its own story. It actually plays with a vampire. So it does seem to complement the base game instead of just being a watered down version of all the rest, which to me is, I think, much nicer.
Nice also could be annoying if you're someone who feels like, oh, now I have to buy both. Great.
Right. Buying both is not. It doesn't feel like one piece. You're getting a whole new story. It's just like as if you got Time Stories, another expansion. Feels like.
But it's such an interesting and strange. Doesn't it seem like weren't there a few games recently that had to do with being blindfolded?
The only one I can think of is when you want to avoid stepping on dog poo. So like that feels more gimmicky than like.
Yeah, I think there were like at least 2 or 3 at Toy Fair this year. But yeah, it seems like that's the new thing. But the interesting thing about it, at least from the pictures, it's like the components aren't. They don't have to make the game look good because you don't look at it.
I wasn't sure, but the pictures I saw almost looked like they were made to glow in the dark.
I wonder, yeah.
Which I would love, because if you're the one guy who sees, you just see the glowing forest.
That would be cool.
But I do like the idea behind it, because one, the fact that we've seen 3 things sounds like it's story op, so you can add modules to be like different kinds of scenarios, which sounds fantastic. A lot of the other times when we see these trends, like you said some of the show, the trends I can think of when Target-like trends is the ones that's putting stuff in your mouth, which I know when we both saw that we're like, pass. But this sounds like something that does belong on a gamer shelf, not just that novelty thing you'd see in a Target or Walmart.
Yeah, it's definitely...
Or once Toys R Us.
Interesting. I mean, Pandasaurus is definitely a solid company. Of course, we loved Dinosaur
Island.
That's what it was. I'm like, I think that's what it is, but I don't want to say like Jurassic Park by mistake. Definitely not what it is. But yeah, it's such a crazy... It reminds me of like, you know, when you're a kid and Halloween, like, oh, it's eyeballs in the bag or whatever. Right? It's like that, gamified, which is neat. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it works.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see more of it. I believe actually it's coming out Gen Con, if I recall.
It seems to be the thing.
Honestly, probably the next few stories we know in general for the weeks coming will be coming Gen Con.
Yeah, get ready for that. The Dice Tower has announced their nominees for their Game of the Year Awards of 2017. You can run down the entire list of nominees for the different categories, such as Most Innovative, Best Game Overall, Best Two-Player, Best Party Game. It is mostly the usual suspects that we've seen from Board Game Geek and other award nominee sites, such as Gloomhaven, Azul, Seventh Continent, Spirit Island, a bunch of others. Was there anything that stood out to you from this list, or anything that you think is gonna change or be exciting about these?
I don't know about exciting. I know one thing we found hilarious was there was a best game developed by a small publisher, and every single game on that list is in the best overall game. And I guess the reasoning behind that is because it used to be the bigger publishers would probably be the ones in those slots and like, let's award the little guys. The little guys, thanks for them, Kickstarter for most of those, are able to take on Asmodee and the other ones. Titles.
It is funny to see like, oh, the little publishers of games like Gloomhaven and Seventh Continent, like those are juggernauts of board games right now.
They are owning the
yeah, this seems a little redundant. Yeah, and there was I like that Drop Mix was up for Most Innovative.
Yeah, no, I mean as we said in our award, I think it was for both. I know for me it was for the bottom, but I think we were both in agreement in terms of just fun and something different hitting the table. It definitely was like near top.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we don't just see Gloomhaven sweep everything like Board Game Geek. But you know, we've been working on our Gloomhaven review to be coming up soon, so you can hear our take officially on that game. But yeah, we'll see shortly what wins Dice Tower's awards.
Renegade Studios has released Alta Plano, which is available now. This is a very popular game about being in the Andes and trying to sort of collect resources. This is actually one we saw at PAX Unplugged at the demoing table. We were trying really hard to get there. Pretty much every time I was near there, I looked to see if it was available, but it's always crowded, always had people around it. Yeah. Definitely really excited. Something you should check out.
Yeah, it's got a cool llama on the cover. Or is it an alpaca? I don't know.
No, I think it's alpaca.
You'll have to buy the game to find out. So that's our news. Just wanted to give you one final reminder that today is the last day you can enter the legendary contest at rollforcrit.com/contest. That's May 7th. So if you're watching this later in the week, it's over already. You lost. Give up right now.
Or you already won because you put in your submissions.
Yeah, but if you are watching this on the day of, check out our Twitch channel tonight /rollforcrit live because we're going to announce the winners there. It'll be real exciting. One winner, only one.
Until then, though, let us know in the comments what you thought about these stories, whether you're a big X-Wing fan and like or hate these new changes. What are your thoughts on the Dice Tower Award nominees? Do you think that certain people should win or not? What are your predictions? Let us know down below. But until then, I'm Will.
I'm Jonathan.
And this has been Roll for Crit News. Hey, if you like what you saw, don't forget to subscribe and like this video for more excellent board game content.
Heck yeah!